4:07 local time. Bandar Abbas Air Base was still wrapped in pre-dawn darkness when the first radar anomaly appeared. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't sustained, it was a smear, a faint, intermittent return at extreme altitude, flickering at the edge of coastal acquisition range before dissolving into background noise. 3 antenna rotations, then nothing. But the duty officer did not dismiss it. He leaned forward. At 4:08, the coastal radar increased power output by 6% and narrowed its sweep arc. The contact returned, smaller this time, almost indistinguishable from atmospheric clutter, yet moving with purpose, heading northeast to southwest. Speed consistent with a high-performance aircraft. Altitude estimated above 55,000 feet. Too high for routine patrol traffic, too deliberate for weather. At 4:09, 6 F-4, Phantom IIs ignited their engines. The scramble order traveled through the base like a concussion wave. Ground crews moved without shouting. Pilots ran without hesitation. This was not a drill profile. This was live intercept geometry. Within 90 seconds, the first pair lifted off. Afterburners carved twin columns of flame into the black sky. 4 more followed in tight intervals, climbing hard over the Gulf. Their radar altimeters broadcast continuously. Their emissions painted clear signatures across the spectrum. Somewhere far above them, something listened. 4:10, 180 nautical miles southeast. USS Abraham Lincoln ran dark in the Arabian Sea. No deck lights, no broadcast traffic. Only the controlled choreography of launch operations conducted in blackout conditions. Catapult 1 cycled. At 4:11:32, a single F-35C Lightning II accelerated down the flight deck and vanished into the night. No strike package, no bombs, no escort. The aircraft climbed through broken cloud layers and extinguished every active emission. Radar silent, data link minimized. Electronic footprint reduced to statistical insignificance. To a conventional radar operator, it became less than an aircraft. It became a question. 4:12. The F-35 crossed the invisible line of Iranian defensive interest. It did not descend. It did not maneuver aggressively. It allowed itself to exist just enough to be noticed. 59,000 feet above the Gulf, the pilot watched his passive sensor fusion display fill with faint pulses of electromagnetic energy. Search radars adjusting. Acquisition arrays cycling faster. Ground controllers speaking in clipped, urgent Farsi. He did nothing, because doing nothing was the mission. 4:14. The Iranian F-4 formation separated into pairs. 2 aircraft climbed north to bracket potential escape routes. 2 pushed east to cut lateral maneuvering space. The lead pair drove directly toward the last known radar return. Textbook intercept geometry. Professional, disciplined. Inside the F-35 cockpit, the pilot monitored the geometry in real time. 6 bright returns on his display, their emissions sharp and unmistakable. Aging airframes, upgraded fire control systems, radars working harder than their designers ever intended. He adjusted heading by 12 degrees, not evasive, just enough. The lead F-4's radar swept through empty sky where he had been seconds earlier. 4:17. 60,000 feet above and well outside Iranian awareness, NRC-135V rivet joint orbited silently. It did not illuminate, it absorbed. Every radar pulse that surged to full power, every fire control emission switching from search to track, every encrypted radio transmission between pilots and ground controllers. The bait was working. 4:19. Bandar Abbas Air Defense Network surged. 3 additional radar sites, previously running in low-power standby, activated simultaneously. Their emissions rose in cascading spikes across the electromagnetic spectrum. The F-35 pilot heard nothing, but the rivet joint heard everything. 4:21. The first lock warning tone hit the American pilot's helmet, sharp, unambiguous. Fire control radar. He held steady for 2 seconds, long enough. Then he broke hard right. 6 Gs pressed him into the seat as he rolled and descended slightly, altering the intercept geometry. Chaff deployment unnecessary. The lock faltered, dropped. The Iranian pilot in Sierra 2 adjusted, tightened his sweep, reacquired for 4 seconds before losing coherence again. 4 seconds was enough. A complete radar fingerprint. 423. The 6 F-4s compressed the bracket. Their geometry was sound, their timing precise. They believed they had found something worth catching. At 4:24:18, Sierra 4 achieved a clean lock. The tone drilled into the F-35 cockpit. This time, it held longer, 7 seconds, 8. The American pilot felt the weight of the moment compress around him. He knew what those seconds meant, not in tactical danger, but in intelligence value. He dove left, trading altitude for angular separation. 9 seconds, 10. At 4:24:29, the lock broke. At 4:24:31, Sierra 4 fired anyway. An R-60 infrared missile left the rail and climbed into airspace the F-35 had already vacated. The missile's exhaust traced a brief, futile arc before gravity reclaimed it. No impact, no damage. But the act itself changed the night. A missile had been fired in international airspace at an American aircraft conducting lawful operations. And every sensor in the region recorded it. The pilot pushed throttle forward, full military power. He turned toward open water. The intercept was over. But the mission had just delivered its answer. 4:25:03 local time. The missile fell away behind him. Its motor burned out, its seeker searching empty sky. Inside the F-35 cockpit, the warning tone had already gone silent. The pilot did not look back. He accelerated. Mach 0.95, Mach 1.02. The nose angled slightly west, not retreating in panic, departing on schedule. Behind him, 6 F-4 E Phantoms reformed instinctively. Their fuel states were already entering the calculation. Afterburner climbs cost range. Hard maneuvers cost endurance. The geometry had shifted. 0426. On the E-2D Hawkeye orbiting far outside Iranian airspace, operators watched the bracket dissolve in slow precision. The Iranian formation had executed correctly. They had split, compressed, reacquired, and fired. But they were now chasing absence. The F-35 was no longer presenting even a marginal radar return. Its aspect angle had shifted. Its emissions remained suppressed. Its speed differential was widening. 427, high above at 60,000 feet, the RC-135 rivet joint continued recording. The missile launch telemetry had been clean. Guidance frequency, seeker activation signature, fire control radar modulation under sustained lock. Every parameter stored in raw data buffers before transmission to analysis teams already working in real time. The rivet joint crew spoke little. They did not need to. They were listening to an entire air defense architecture speak at once. 428. Bandar Abbas ground control flooded the spectrum. Instructions rapid, excited, declarative. Iranian pilots believed they had forced the intruder away. That belief mattered because belief drove behavior, and behavior exposed systems. 3 additional radar emitters activated further inland, units that had remained silent for months under satellite observation. Low-frequency L-band arrays, short-range acquisition sets near Shiraz, mobile fire control vehicles repositioning along pre-planned corridors. All of it visible now, not visually, but electromagnetically. The F-35's pilot monitored the emissions bloom across his passive display. He did not celebrate. He did not react. He maintained heading. 4:30. Fuel warnings began appearing inside the Iranian cockpits. The lead pair reduced afterburner first. The eastern bracket widened unintentionally as range discipline overrode aggression. For 4 minutes, they pressed the chase. For 4 minutes, they tried to reacquire. They never achieved a stable track again. 4:32. One of the F-4 pilots attempted another brief radar lock, switching between search and acquisition modes in quick succession. The oscillation created a distinctive waveform. The rivet joint captured every microsecond. That waveform would later reveal firmware modification, subtle but measurable. Improved target discrimination, extended coherent integration time, a post-crash upgrade, 0434. The American pilot crossed back into international airspace. No further maneuvering required, no counterfire necessary. He had been authorized to defend himself. He had chosen not to, because the objective was not destruction. It was exposure. 4:35. On USS Abraham Lincoln, the Combat Direction Center tracked the entire engagement in silence. The Battle Watch captain had issued weapons free during the missile launch. No weapon had been used. The restraint was deliberate. A missile fired and recorded carries strategic weight. A missile answered changes everything. 4:37. The 6 Iranian F-4s broke off pursuit. Fuel math had become undeniable. They turned back toward Bandar Abbas in disciplined formation, radios alive with controlled reporting. They believed they had successfully defended their airspace. They believed the intruder had fled. They were partially correct. The F-35 had left, but it had left carrying something far more valuable than survival. 4:41. At altitude, the RC-135 reduced collection intensity as Iranian emissions tapered. Air defense radars returned to staggered low-power cycling. Mobile units repositioned. Communications traffic normalized. The trap had closed. 4:48. The F-35 entered recovery pattern over the Arabian Sea. The deck of the Abraham Lincoln was once again alive with controlled motion. Yellow jerseys guiding, green jerseys signaling, red jerseys crouched by the arresting wires. The aircraft touched down at 5:03. Hook caught. Deceleration, violent and precise. Taxi clear. Engines down. The pilot removed his helmet without theatrics. No one applauded. They did not need to. 5:07. Preliminary analysis began before the aircraft's canopy cooled. Radar signature improvements confirmed. New emitter identified. Missile telemetry archived. Command and control architecture mapped. The engagement had lasted 47 minutes. No aircraft lost. No bombs dropped. No headlines generated. But inside classified channels, the night would be recorded as a strategic event, because Iran had revealed more in those 47 minutes than it had in the previous year. And the most unexpected outcome was this. The mission had concluded fast. Not because the fight ended quickly, but because the fight had never been the point. 5:12 local time. The F-35 sat cold on the deck. The mission was airborne no longer. It was analytical. Inside a secured compartment deep within USS Abraham Lincoln, raw data streams from the RC-135 rivet joint began populating encrypted terminals, terabytes of electromagnetic recordings, layered radar sweeps, fire control pulses, voice traffic bursts in compressed Farsi. No explosions, no victory music, just waveform analysis. 5:14. The first anomaly appeared. Sierra 2's radar lock sequence showed coherent stability, 17% longer than prior intelligence baselines had predicted. That number did not look dramatic. It was not revolutionary, it was operational. The firmware build signature embedded in the modulation cycle did not match the last recorded Iranian F-4 upgrade profile. It was newer. Post-crash, 0517. Analysts overlaid the missile engagement timeline. The R-60 launch telemetry revealed improved seeker stabilization at launch angle deviation. A minor refinement, but one that required deliberate calibration work. Iran had not merely repaired aging aircraft. It had studied something, extracted something, adapted quickly. 5:19. The more significant discovery came from the ground. When the F-35 allowed itself to become marginally visible at 4:12, Iranian coastal radar networks activated in layered sequence. Those layers had now been mapped. 3 radar systems previously observed only in partial emission had fully declared themselves under threat stimulus. One emitter matched no existing American database profile. Frequency band, L-band. Pulse compression pattern, locally engineered. Scan cycle, optimized for low observable target acquisition in look-down geometry. It was not a breakthrough system, but it existed. Operational. 5:23. The rivet joint crew replayed the surge at 4:19. When Bandar Abbas escalated, every coastal radar spiked simultaneously. That surge exposed synchronization latency between nodes, 0.8 seconds. That latency defined vulnerability. 526. The communications network architecture was even more revealing. Encrypted bursts between ground controllers and F-4 pilots traveled through two primary relay hubs. Both hubs had been identified. Both hubs had transmitted during missile authorization. Both hubs were now cataloged. 531. Back at Bandar Abbas, the 6 F-4 pilots removed helmets inside briefing rooms that smelled faintly of hydraulic fluid and aviation fuel. They believed they had forced the intruder to withdraw. Their geometry had been sound, their timing disciplined. They had achieved radar locks. They had fired. They had demonstrated resolve. All of that was true. 537. In Washington, initial summary packets began moving through secure channels. The report did not describe a dogfight. It described reaction velocity. The firmware update timeline suggested that Iranian engineers had analyzed data from a recent F-4 crash, reverse-engineered lessons, and implemented radar software improvements in under 6 weeks. That speed mattered more than the 17% performance gain. Velocity is capability. 544. A new overlay map rendered across American planning screens. Updated Iranian coastal air defense architecture. 3 new emitter signatures. 1 confirmed L-band AESA node. Missile authorization chain confirmed through live telemetry. Interception doctrine verified. 0552. The absence of other aircraft types became its own data point. No F-14 scrambles. No MiG-29s. No Su-24s. Either maintenance constraints limited readiness, or command calculus deemed 6 F-4s sufficient. Either explanation defined operational posture. 0558. The missile launch, preserved in time-stamped recording, was archived without public statement. No protest filed. No escalation demanded. The record existed. That was enough. 604. Analysts concluded something both reassuring and sobering. Iranian pilots were competent. Their intercept geometry was correct. Their bracket discipline professional. The air defense network activated quickly and coherently. Competence was present. But platform age imposed ceilings that firmware could not erase. An F-4, however upgraded, could not sustain track against a 5th-generation aircraft that did not wish to be tracked. 6 aircraft against 1. And the one had never been in true danger. Not because of heroics, because of physics. 611. The engagement duration, 47 minutes. Missiles fired, 1. American weapons fired, 0. Aircraft lost, 0. Intelligence gained, comprehensive. The mission had been designed to conclude fast, not in combat, in clarity. 618. In Iranian airspace, radar emissions gradually normalized. Standby patterns resumed, public messaging prepared. The narrative would describe successful interception. Warning shot fired. Intruder retreated. That narrative would hold domestically. It would not mention the 11 seconds of lock data that now existed in American archives. It would not mention the new L-band system that had revealed itself. It would not mention that the intruder had come specifically to provoke exactly that response. 624. The F-35 pilot completed debrief. No medals, no press release. Just confirmation. Mission objective achieved. He had entered. He had been detected. He had triggered response. He had left. The unexpected outcome was not survival. It was exposure. And the mission had concluded before sunrise. 6:42 local time. The sun rose over the Persian Gulf without spectacle. Commercial tankers resumed transit lanes. Fishing vessels moved as they always had. Civilian radar feeds showed routine air traffic patterns along established corridors. Nothing in open-source space suggested that, 47 minutes earlier, 6 Iranian fighters had bracketed an American stealth aircraft and fired a missile in international airspace. That was by design. Inside the secure analysis compartments aboard USS Abraham Lincoln, the engagement was no longer a flight event. It was a database. 703, preliminary intelligence packets were transmitted through encrypted satellite channels. Fort Meade received the raw signal logs. Langley received emitter profiles. The Pentagon received the executive summary. The summary did not mention danger. It mentioned architecture. 3 previously uncharacterized radar systems confirmed operational. Firmware variant identified within frontline F-4 fire control units. Integrated air defense network latency measured under live stress. Missile authorization chain mapped from cockpit trigger to ground confirmation. The mission had been structured around one assumption: Iran would react. They had. 7/18. Analysts overlaid the night's data with archival records from the recent F-4 crash that Tehran had publicly described as mechanical failure. The crash site had been sealed quickly. Recovery teams had worked overnight. Signals intelligence had detected unusual traffic between Isfahan and Bandar Abbas in the days that followed. Now the pieces aligned. The radar improvements were modest: 15 to 18% increased coherence under low observable tracking conditions. But they were real. More importantly, they had been implemented rapidly. Iranian engineers had learned something from that wreckage. Extracted, analyzed, upgraded, deployed. Velocity. That was the revelation. 7:31. Back in Bandar Abbas, Iranian command reviewed their own recordings. They had detected the intruder. They had scrambled 6 aircraft within 2 minutes. They had achieved lock. They had fired. The intruder had departed. From their perspective, the system had functioned. That narrative would travel through state media before noon. National airspace defended. Warning shot fired. Foreign aircraft repelled. The phrasing would be careful. The omission absolute. 7:44. What Tehran could not measure was what had left with the retreating aircraft. The rivet joint's 47-minute archive now contained the electromagnetic fingerprint of Iran's coastal defense network under real combat stimulus. Baseline radar sweeps were one thing. Threat response emissions were another. When systems believe they are under genuine pressure, they reveal redundancy nodes, fallback protocols, bandwidth allocation priorities. They reveal their nervous system. 802. A classified assessment circulated through senior command channels. Iranian Air Force professionalism, high. Platform modernization pace, increasing. Stealth counter detection effort, active but incomplete. Engagement doctrine, disciplined, geometry sound. Strategic vulnerability, network transparency under provocation. No celebration language, no triumph. Just recalibration. 819. The missile launch remained archived without diplomatic protest. There would be no public escalation. The record existed, time-stamped, telemetry verified, legally preserved. It would remain dormant unless needed. 833. Regional allies quietly received summarized intelligence updates. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, partner navies in the Gulf. The takeaway was not that Iran had failed. It was that Iranian capabilities had been measured, quantified, mapped. 0847. On the Abraham Lincoln's flight deck, routine operations resumed. FA-18S launched for patrol. Maintenance crews serviced aircraft. The F-35 that had triggered the entire chain of events sat indistinguishable from the others. No special markings, no visible scars. 9/12. In strategic terms, nothing had changed overnight, and everything had. Iran had demonstrated competence within the constraints of aging platforms. The United States had demonstrated the ability to enter contested airspace, provoke full defensive activation, and depart without loss. 6 fighters against 1. The one had never intended to win a dogfight. It had intended to collect an answer. 9:37. The final internal report carried a simple conclusion. Mission objective achieved. Engagement duration, 47 minutes. No friendly casualties. Comprehensive air defense data acquired. Unexpected outcome. Not because the F-35 survived, because the speed of Iranian adaptation had been revealed, and because the entire engagement had concluded before either side crossed the threshold of open conflict. Iran chased the ghost away. The ghost left carrying their reflection.